There we go. I like it.
I know.
This is fun. It's a great time. I love it. All right, Rayvon, I'm done with you playing. That was a good one. Well, guys, if you are tuning into this live episode, I'm Dre with the Aim High podcast, and of course, I have with me one a guest who I have known for basically my whole entire life.
A lot of time there, man.
It's been at least it's darn near 30 years at this point.
Damn near.
Tyler, tell the people about yourself.
Well, as Dre said, we've been friends for a long time. We grew up together in church and other social spaces, but um, I'm a dad. Been dad. My son's 14 now. I'm 30. Originally born and raised in Colorado. Spent some time out in the South, and here I am now on the cast, man, and ready to answer some questions and have a lot of dialogue going back and forth.
Hey, I like it. So like first and foremost, like I guess like how are you doing from like a mental health standpoint?
Um, you know, it it has its good days and its bad days, like anything else. Some days are just tougher, considering it's just me most of the time. I don't I don't have I have my son, but he lives in a whole nother state, and so I don't always get to interact and be with my son, and so some days are better than others, but typically when things are going my way, mental health is pretty good. It's on the up and up.
Okay. Um, what like I guess for you, how did you get to a point where it's on the up and up? Because it never starts that way for all of us.
No, I think it's just um continually finding your interests in life, whether it be some shows, getting in the gym, whatever it is for you that you feel you're curious about, explore
Mhm.
it. Explore it. You don't know what type of peace that might grant you, or even what type of what you might learn about yourself in the
Yeah.
process of trying and exploring new things. So I
Okay.
think that's one good way to do it. And some days, other times, if you can afford to switch up your schedule and how you do things, switch it up and see if that sparks some new energy, some joy about yourself.
So a friend of mine who I've done a podcast with, his name is Mikey De La Pava. He introduced to me this concept of mental hygiene, which is less about your mental health and more about the things that you do that surround your mental health and that help add to it and build it up. So for you, what type of things would you say like is like part of your mental hygiene? Like what what encompasses your mental health that like adds to it and helps you like keep it up?
Um, I know it's gonna sound crazy, but just being able to relax and do things for me, right? The spaces that I work in, I'm always having to tend to other people, right? And so I'm sometimes the last person I think about in the day. And so just when I'm able to have those moments of silence to either, like I said before, get into some things that I'm interested in, or even if it's just sitting in some peace and quiet. Um, one of those two are good for me anyway, because sometimes things just keep moving, moving, moving. You're meeting dates, you're meeting times, and there's no time to really slow down. And so when you actually have the time and the effort to sit down and relax, I don't know, you actually get to think stuff through with a different type of energy and a different mindset.
Yeah, and it's interesting because like that, for some people that is both a good thing and a bad thing.
Yeah.
Like just having time to think. Um, do you feel like having time to think and kind of like sit with your own thoughts is more of a detriment, or do you enjoy the peace a bit more?
Say that last part one more time.
Do you enjoy the peace a bit more, or is like being with your own thoughts kind of like not so comfortable spot?
I had to learn to become comfortable with it because oftentimes we'll run and we'll ask everybody else under the sun what they think about this, what they think about that, what should I do about this, what should I do about that situation. But oftentimes we haven't checked with the person that actually has to deal with the situation. And so, sometimes you got to ask yourself, do I have the energy? Do I have the mental fortitude to deal with certain things, to overcome? And sometimes it's no, but we just take strides and try to be better day by day. So I wouldn't say it's necessarily something that is uncomfortable. I had to get comfortable in putting myself first in certain aspects because you can't please everybody, and not everybody is going home with you. So you got to make sure that the person in the mirror is ultimately good from day to day.
It makes me think of so like Lauren Hill is one of my favorite artists, and she has
Okay.
a in the song Lost Ones, she has something like really impactful that she said, where she says, "How you gonna win if you ain't right within?"
Yeah,
And that's
that's
as
facts. That's
real as it gets.
factual. Because if you're not right, you know, you can't have clear thought. You might move out of emotion. Certain things you might overreact to, and so you just want to be able to process things in real time without feeling like you're overreacting or you're giving too much energy to the situation.
And I get the interesting thing. Okay, let me preface this. Uh,
Okay.
Not getting in my misogyny bag when I say this, but men, we are from an early age, we're taught to not move so much out of emotion, but to move off of what is logical and what makes the most sense. The only downside with that mindset is, well, again, no mindset's perfect, but the only downside with that mindset is a lot of times what is the most logical choice is neither optimal or possible. And you
Yeah.
have to pretty much figure out like, oh, how do I process this?
You
Um,
you just got to tailor make it.
well, like how I guess like what when you're hitting one of those mental walls, like what's your process for like getting over it? Like what's your process?
um, when I hit a mental, now when you say a mental wall, are you just saying like being burnt out with every day? Like what aspect are we
Um,
hitting this mental wall?
so let's say that book Alexander and the terrible, no good, horrible, bad day.
Yeah.
Say you're having one of those. It is just everything that can go wrong is just not right. Like you're late for work. Your like alarm didn't go off, or you weren't able to get your like son out of the house on time, or you're not able to pick him up on time, or something.
Well, it's all about how you look at the situation. Now, for me, if it's compounding issues, like for example, you left the house late. I'm late for work. I didn't get to go to lunch on time. I went to order lunch. My lunch wasn't right. If it's all like that, then I take that as life trying to test me to react a way that I shouldn't, and that something good is coming around the corner. Um, Now, if it's situational ordeals, then I kind of look at it as like, well, I can't react this way. I can react. I can react this way, or I can react this way. Now, which one more so is one which reaction can I live with? you
Okay.
know, whether I have a 5 minute burner and I'm like just flying off the handle and then I collect myself, or if I'm just taking it all in and then finally at the end of the day I'm just like, you know what, today was boop 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 boop, and then after that I'm just kind of like, all right, we got that out of our system, we got to get ready for the next day. It's kind of like next play mentality. One thing I tell my son, I coach kids. I oftentimes tell the kids, it's okay to feel how you feel, just don't stay there.
Hmm.
Don't let that bleed over into the next day, because there's a new day with new opportunity, which requires you to have a new mindset and outlook and approach. But if you're still carrying and dragging stuff with you from yesterday, then you're never going to be prepared for what's to come.
Hey, that that works, man. Because like if you are if a lot of times I feel for men specifically, I feel like we let our last chapter prevent us from moving on to our next chapter. We are so focused on what didn't go right in circumstances that are like months and years past, that we're like taking that baggage that we didn't deal with to situations of today.
Because we're I know this is gonna sound bland, but we're men. We're competitive. When we envision certain things, we envision us coming out on top. And so sometimes when we don't come out on top, we feel like everything else was a waste. When in reality, it wasn't a waste. It was just you need a little bit more preparation.
Hmm.
But you've at least gotten started on the trail, on the path that you're trying to ultimately reach. It's just that we get caught up in our own mental, right? And we envision it a certain way. So the way we envision it, we expect it to happen. And when it doesn't happen that way, we have a hard time dissecting the good we could take away from it and the bad. We just look at all the bad, but we don't even see how far we've really come in its totality.
Yeah, it's really hard to like not be the big picture thinker, and
Yeah.
like because the big picture will get you jacked up so much. It's so like you'll get messed up so much, you just being the big picture person. Sometimes you got to really think of like minute by minute, moment by moment, like little picture, and that's what gets you through some of the most like difficult like days. But I have days where I sit back and I'm just like, man, was it nothing but the grace of God that I made it through some of these circumstances? Because like I'm
And
just
that's it. Being able to recognize that, but how you said we look at the big picture.
Mhm.
That's because we know what type of lifestyle, what type of success, what type of spaces we're yearning for, and so in order to kind of fulfill that picture, we got to keep putting the puzzle together. When you first open up that 350 piece puzzle, it looks crazy. And then you get a little border around it, and the picture still ain't clear, but you at least have some structure. And
That's
then you
true.
slowly start pulling that picture together. And then when it's all done, you look back and you're like, man, it took a long time, but I finished it. And that's the same process we got to kind of go through in life. As much as not saying we can't have the big picture, but sometimes we just got to keep adding pieces to it until that picture is done.
Just a little bit at a time, a little
That's
bit.
it.
It,
Rome
so
wasn't built in one day.
exactly. Um, so let's see. Anyone that is watching this portion, I'm going to give you a advanced like kind of trigger warning. The next like 5-10 minutes, the topic of suicide is going to come up. So if you're somebody that like that might adversely affect you, I'd say check back in like the next 10 minutes or so. But this is just your advance warning. Um, so I have a few statistics that I was gonna like share with you and
Yeah.
just get your like feedback on it. So This is as give me 1 second. I want to get the up to date ones. The last ones I was able to pull was from 2022, but they
Okay.
did the last one they did was 2024. Give me 1 second. Wow, they really broke this down. Actually, they really did actually.
Good. We need more
They
information on the subject.
so the and this is what as of 2023, the suicide rate among males in 2023 was approximately 4 times higher than the rate among female. Males make up 50% of the population, but nearly 80% of suicides. So,
Hmm.
um, the for females they had it at 5.9, and males was 22.7. And
That's
then
tough.
and then people ages 85 and older had the highest rates in 2023. The people like in our age group, it's about 18.6 to 19.2 percent.
Okay.
Um, Most common methods is firearms,
Yeah, you
but
said the older guys are at
yes,
what percentage?
they were at. Oh, let me go back to it. 85 plus is 22%, 22.7%.
At 85 years old?
85 and over.
That's crazy for taking themselves.
But you gotta think. You got to think that a lot of people in that 85 plus, they are, well, pretty much anybody 65 and over, they are from generations where mental health was not taken seriously.
Yeah,
And
most
anyone that's
definitely.
like 70 plus is someone that was in maybe World War One, World War Two, Korea, Vietnam, any of those things. So they've seen a lot at that age. A lot of your people are passed on. So like that age group, like the numbers surprised me, but like them being up there isn't too so like it's terrible to say, but it didn't surprise me too much.
It surprised me a little bit more considering the age group. Not saying that anybody's above certain things, but you would think, once life has settled down a little bit more, depending upon where you're at in life, there's just a certain way you would possibly be able to handle
So
certain situations.
they did age adjusted like rate for males. It is increased from 18.5 in 2002 to as of 2022 it was 23. And this is and from 2009 to 2019 it's increased for all age groups of males. And um for men 25 to 44 it is 29.6 per 100,000.
Okay.
And the leading for like the disparities from a racial ethnic line, um white males are the highest with 25.23, but black and African Americans is 14.5.
Okay.
um well, I know I gave you a lot of numbers, a lot of statistics, but I guess how do you feel about that, or like what are your thoughts about that?
Um, it seems like they're taking a poll like every 3 to 4 years.
Hmm.
It seems like so. Hopefully, if they do another one come 26 or 2026, 2027, hopefully those numbers are down. You know, because you said from 18 to what age we're at 23% now
Compared to in 2002 when it was 18.5.
yeah, I mean, that may not alarm too many people, but that's still that's too steady. I feel like of a growth rate for that.
And it does, the numbers I looked up did have um it did have the like these notes to add. said while women are more likely to attempt suicide, men are more likely to use deadlier methods, leading to a higher rate of completed. So, basically most women survive their attempts because the methods they use aren't necessarily like deadlier as much as with men. And then for the factors that contributed to the high male suicide rates, they say traditional male gender roles that discourage emotional expression and help seeking, stigma around mental health, and reluctance to seek treatment. Underdiagnosis of depression in men, as they may describe symptoms as stress rather than sadness. Self treating symptoms of depression with alcohol and other substances. Social isolation and loneliness. Financial pressures and fear of failure to provide for families. Relationship difficulties and loss of a loved one. And access to lethal means. So when
All
you
those,
when you
all
hear
those
those
are triggers.
yeah, when you hear those factors, I guess like what does that ring up for you, I guess?
Um, I mean, all those things are valid hurdles that us as men we oftentimes have to navigate through. Um, I just think sometimes as men we get so caught up in trying to get after what we're trying to get after, to where sometimes we forget a sense of community,
Mm-hmm.
and a real sense of brotherhood and being there for one another, not for just negative moments or not when you're feeling bad, but allowing people to really be there for us when we are, even when we're feeling good, still allowing people to be there for us. So we know that people's care for us isn't situational, it's thorough. And so I know I got a few guys that I talk to, and it's not necessarily on a mental health tip, but we just stay in touch. Relative, our schedules allow us to stay in touch fairly often, and so um, I think as guys we just gotta be willing to have all those conversations with one another. I think one thing women do well in is community, with their friendships and their support circles, whatever's kind of happening or going on, they're going to have at least a good three or more that might be they're dependable. They could lean on them in certain moments and certain times when certain things arise, and they just come together. Not saying guys don't do it either. I just think we can do a better job of being there for each other outside of our typical spaces of going to hang out at the bar, hanging out at the gym, on the basketball court, because our issues don't stop just because we're at the bar, at the gym, on the court, or whatever. But it's also a bit of there has to be some trust there. Do you trust this man enough to be vulnerable enough to have certain conversations, to go to him about things without feeling like you're going to be criticized and judged?
Yeah, that's that's important. I think that's a lot of what I think that contributes a lot because one of the things it said was that uh, seeking like help and emotional expression. Like um, I think that a lot of parents raising kids now and ones that will raise kids down the road are going to figure out that the mindset that prior generations had of like just burying your emotions deep down just did not work, does not work. Like it's not gonna it like long term it is not the best solution because you've now got men that don't know how to process their emotions or emotionally regulate themselves, and anyone that does not have good self-control emotionally is going to lash out in other ways in other areas of their lives, and a lot of times at the wrong moment. And depending depending on how extreme their reaction is, a crash out at the wrong time can lead to some very permanent consequences. And
Most definitely, and sometimes it's not even crashing out. Sometimes it's just the lack of presence. You know, your presence is needing to be there, and you're physically there, but mentally you have checked all the way out, which
Yeah,
can cause other issues because it's like, well, what's really going on? And sometimes if you as the man can't even pinpoint it, but everybody's still expecting you to show up and come through, then yeah, you can feel a little overwhelmed in that sense because it's like, dang, I don't even know what's going on with me, but I need to make sure everybody else has A, B, C, D, and X, Y, and Z so that they're taken care of. But who's who's taking care of me at the end of the day? Like, how am I? I don't even know what it is I need right now, but I know what everyone else needs. So you kind of I gotta put myself on the back burner to try to show up for everybody else. But I just ran out of gas.
it is. It's that's like one of the real like hard parts is just, hey, how do I find a way to make this work for me? How do I find a way to push through this and get this to be better than what I had prior? Because and I think so much like we get caught up on about like not parenting the way that like we were parented because again, no knock for any of our parents out
They
there.
did what they could
They
do
did what
with.
they could do.
They did the best they could do with what they had, man.
And it's not till you're an adult that you process certain things better and you're like, you know what, I didn't like this, or as a kid this didn't make sense to me, and then you're like, oh well, I'm not going to do that as a parent, and then I think you get so hyper focused on not emulating traits of the adults around you that you didn't like as a kid that you either lean so far into it or so far away, and all you really got to do is just, at least from what I have, the feedback I've gotten is just be the parent that your child needs.
That's it, because everybody's child is different. Everybody's child is being brought up in different times, right? What's normal now, what may not have been normal for us 20 years ago. So our parents may not agree with it, but for our kids it may be a conversation that we have to have. And although we may agree, we may not also agree, but at least we're at least in the space to where we're able to have certain conversations. Because I think back then, certain things just wasn't even up for conversation. The only explanation you were getting is because I told you
Is
so.
that so?
Yeah. And I'm not saying you got to explain every fine minute detail to your kids, but I feel like educating them in your decision process allows a lot more comfortability to be transparent with one another. And so as your child gets older now, instead of worrying about your child sneaking and doing all these other things that you may not agree with or unaware of, the child has built a level of comfortability over the years to just be like, hey, mom, dad, this is how I'm thinking about this is how I'm feeling about that. I kind of want your 2 cents on the matter versus us. We were like, ooh, I don't know if I could really bring this up. Like, because if I bring it up, we ain't even gonna finish on the same topic. It's gonna get spun around, and
And
everything's gonna get
now I
lost.
can't do anything for like a month,
Yeah,
all because I wanted to ask a question. No, so okay, so for the audience that might not know, obviously, unless you knew me and Tyler growing up and you're like tuned in, um, whenever me, Tyler, or our friend Darian, if the three of us wanted to hang out, we would peer pressure one of the other ones to ask parents.
it was the only way to do it.
Like if I wanted to hang out with Tyler, I would have to go ask his mom. If I wanted, if I wanted to make sure I could hang out with Tyler and Darren, I would have one of them go ask either my grandparents or my mom. And then Darian swore up and down that his mom would only say yes if we asked. He said she will say no if he asks.
Well, in certain circles, you got to keep certain groups together. So now that I'm at that teenage level, and my son's always asking to go places.
Mm-hmm.
As a parent, you already know your kid's gonna ask. You already know it's gonna happen. It's just a matter of, well, did you do everything you were really supposed to
Yep.
before I okay it? Like my mom, when you guys would ask to come over or hang out, if I could stay later, I would have to get started on things like a week in advance because
He had to build up good points.
I had to build up good points, and my mom just wasn't a last minute person. So if you wanted me to come hang out with you next weekend, the previous weekend is when we got to start planning for next weekend. And then during that whole week, I got to be on top of my stuff at home. Like, my mom can't say nothing to me about my room, the dishes, none of that. I just better be a fly on the wall that week if I want to kind of get out and enjoy myself a bit. So that's what always made those interactions so interesting because you really never knew how well you did until you
So
either got the
you
yes or no. Because when you got the no, there would be an explanation behind why you got the no. Be like, no, you can't do it this weekend because you didn't do X, Y, and Z. Okay. But you wouldn't know until the moment of. So that's what always made that kind of hard.
let's see. Let me ask you this.
What's
Do
up?
you do you feel like you were more equipped to deal with mental health challenges or like mental health opposition because you grew up in church, or do you feel like you were underprepared because of it? I know it's a
it's,
crazy question.
it's not a crazy question. It's a good question. It's a great question. I will say underprepared. And I say that because when you're in church, you're only dealing with a select group of people, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh,
Uh,
oh,
the
there you go. Okay.
world, the world has a little bit of everybody in
Yep.
it, and the church doesn't equip you to deal with everybody. On a mental health standpoint, yes, there's principles and things that teach you and how to act with people, how to interact with people, but to deal with the mental health part, no. I don't think there's any good preparation outside of really trying to understand it, doing your research, putting in your time to really understand what type of monster mental health can be. But I feel like sometimes with the church, we just gloss over so many things behind using the phrase "pray about it." And I'm not saying that's a negative connotation, but sometimes there are real deal issues that are happening in real time for people, and we know God is an on time God. But in the interim time, what type of community is really being had? I feel like people sometimes in the church they say pray about it and leave it at that, and don't check. They don't bother checking up on you. They don't bother seeing if you need anything. They don't bother seeing, if they know somebody that they could possibly connect you with to assist you in what you're looking for. Just because you may not have an answer doesn't mean you don't know somebody that has an answer.
Exactly. And so I feel the same way. Like I just felt like because whenever we would try to ask about the heavier or serious topics, always got told we'd circle back to it. Never circle back. Whenever it happened so much that whenever we heard, oh, we'll circle back to it, it was just a collective group eye roll because we knew we weren't coming back to it. And um I don't know if you were still in Colorado when this happened. No, I think you weren't in Colorado at this time. I think you were down south when this happened. But one time, uh, shout out to Pastor Roll, by the way. But
Shout
anyway,
out Pete Roll.
but one time he had this. It was like a summit kind of thing. Like basically, all the adults were sitting on one side of the church, and all the kids were sitting on another side. And you as and like he had these different prompts, and you could text. There was a number that you could text your answers to the prompts or the
Yeah.
discussion, and all that showed me was that so many of the adults around us were so set in the way that they viewed the world, and the way that they viewed things and the way they operated, that they weren't willing to hear any of our thoughts or feedbacks on certain prompts. And it was just like, and I remember because the whole time that we're there, I'm sitting next to Aaliyah, and me and Aaliyah are like losing our minds internally because we're like, yo, like y'all really ain't trying to hear us on this. Like this is crazy. This like it was just, but like it was one of those things
That's
where
because of tradition.
mhm,
You know, when you have tradition versus what's practical, those two are always going to butt heads because traditionally we've been doing it this way this long and it's always worked.
so we gonna do it this
So
way.
you're right. So we're going to do it this way, but I think the problem, and not to dive too deep in on the church. Of course, there's problems everywhere, but I think the problem in that situation is, the elders are kind of supposed to help us as we're ushering in a new generation. They're supposed to help us help the church transition, so they got to prepare us. But if you see a 6 and I'm saying it's a 9, yeah, from your perspective, you're right. From my perspective, I'm right. But we have no common ground. And so I think that's part of the reason why some of the youth in a lot of church spaces um, just aren't there or as prevalent anymore. And it's because the transition, everybody wants to be right, but nobody wants to educate each other in the why and what we can do better to improve upon what's to come.
I like that. So for you, what is what I guess what are the challenges of not just being a man in America, but like being a black man in America? So like, what's like a big challenge for you?
Um,
And it
a,
doesn't even have to be just one.
a big, repeat your question one more time.
So as what are the most challenging parts of being not just a man in America, but being a black man in America?
Um, Education.
Hmm.
Um, I was raised in the South, and schooling is a big thing out there, and I've been very fortunate to pursue a higher learning education. And instead of oftentimes seeing what's on the black and white, right, as far as schooling, the things I've done, color of my skin, I automatically get it trumps 60%, 70% of what they may see on that paper. So being a man that doesn't mind providing and wants to provide for my family and things, but uh, being kicked out, quote unquote, or not, or being looked over for opportunity because I'm a black man in America it's a very tedious process because you don't want to give up because tomorrow might be the day you win, but at the same time, you like, God dang it, can I catch a break? Who is out here really putting these people in charge? Because I want to talk to that person,
It's that age old thing of like, no one's gonna always clap for you. Sometimes you got to clap for yourself. And I it's like I
My
said
hands is
before.
turning red, and my knuckles is about to bleed from knocking on all these doors.
Hey, but listen, a single clap is what starts a standing ovation, and sometimes you got to be
You're
the one
right.
that claps for you.
You're right.
But
No matter how long you stand in there.
um, so what is the price of your what is the price of your mental health, and then as a provider for your family's way of life, what type of mental toll does that take for you, mental and emotional?
Um, as far as providing the mental and emotional, um, I'm pretty good as long as I'm able to come through and take care of what I'm supposed to take care of. I could be tired at the end of it. I'll get me, I'll be tired on the end of it if it means everybody else is taken care of and happy on the front end. Like I get knowing how hard I work, what type of work ethic I have, putting that into action to then seeing it produce fruit for my loved ones to enjoy. That's where I feel good at. And so the work don't really feel like work like that. Now when I know things are stacking up and I know I got to get to it and I'm trying my best to make things happen, but things just aren't quite working out,
Mm-hmm.
that's when I think mentally and emotionally I become a little drained with the process of still just trying to show up and give it 110% day in and day out, because some days you just don't feel like it. But do you really have an option? Does anyone really care about how you feel? eh, it can go it can go either way, right? And so often we live in a production driven world to where it's like screw how you feel. What did you produce?
That part.
And so I know, like I said, I know if I'm taking care of everything and yeah, it may get a little rocky, but things is flowing. I'm okay. What I'm not okay with is knowing that things are stacking up and people are depending upon me and needing me for certain things. And I can't, and I don't have the resources or the wherewithal to show up the way I know I like to show up.
Yeah, which is efficiently. Um, so what what are what are five things, and these can be either emotional, mental, life events, or physical, that define you as a person?
That define me: easygoing, hardworking, uh, family friend oriented, uh, sports lover, I guess you could say.
Okay. And so,
um, And I
and,
just, like I said, I just try to show up for my friends and family, be the supportive one,
okay.
be show up in the best way I can.
And so, I guess, like, how do you do that?
But how do I show up?
Yep.
I
What
mean,
does showing up look like for you?
I mean, we here on the podcast right now.
Hey, valid. Valid.
We talked about this what Tuesday, Monday,
Yep.
and we here.
Yeah.
It's not long, and because for me it costs $0 and 0 cents to show support.
Love
So,
it.
if I got free time and availability, I'm gonna be there. Friends, family, whatever the event, I'm gonna be there. If I got the availability and I can do it, and I give you my word that I'm gonna do it, then that's just what it's gonna be.
I like that. I definitely like that. What I guess, like, what sparks joy for you, and what do you find joy in, I guess?
Um, I find joy in walking to the beat of my own drum. Because yeah, like I said before, you're gonna have good moments, you're gonna have bad moments. I try to stay even keel, and so just being confident and knowing the type of mentality and the skills that you possess, I don't see a reason why I shouldn't think highly of myself and walk like I think highly of myself.
I like that. Um, so if you like just I want you to just think back on this. So if you had to think of a word that describes how you like feel currently in this like moment, what word would you use?
At ease.
I like that.
I'm not, and I say at ease because, like, yeah, like we're all going through it right now, right? Economy's jacked up, work may be a little crazy, home life might be a little crazy, but knowing that it can be better. I mean, of course, you're always going to strive for better, but it can always be worse. Um, I tore my Achilles last year, May, playing basketball, man. And I was non weight bearing for a little while. I couldn't go to the basketball court. So, basketball is my favorite sport. So, on top of my, on top of being limited in my interactions with people,
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't move around. I couldn't play that. I couldn't do the one thing that I like to do to relieve stress because I can't stand, walk, or run, which
Yeah.
is play basketball. And so, mentally, that was probably one of the lowest points I had been in a while. But it allowed me to do a lot of deeper understanding of not necessarily who I am, but what do I want for myself moving forward. Like, yeah, we know we're trying to get after it every day. But now that you have some time to kind of think about more than just what you got to do on a day to day, what do you want for yourself a couple years from now, a few months from now? What do you want this to look like? How do you want this to look? And I found solace in being able to plan for that, which is why I'm at ease now. Of course, yeah, I envision things being a little bit better, but it's not as bad as it was. And we're still taking it day by day. We're still approaching it with good attitude, good energy. But in that moment, when I was down, it was a lot of questions and it was a lot of self reflection that was kind of happening.
I like that. Um, so when it comes to like for you, when when life is done, when the world is stopped and all that stuff, um, what what are you gonna be most proud of when everything's all said and done?
Whatever my son decides to do,
You know what? I love that.
um, you know, because he's gonna have kids one day, right? But the very principles and things that I've instilled in him is hopefully the foundation that he sets for his kids and their kids set for their kids. And it all started right here with me. So to be able to say that when it's all said and done, to say that I can, as men, I personally feel like we're responsible for the foundation at least. You may not have the walls and everything up, but at least the foundation for what future generations are, because you are responsible for
Exactly.
them. So when your son's old enough, you guys are gonna start having conversations, and there's gonna be certain things you're gonna tell him, like, "Hey, son, I wouldn't quite do that if I was you. If you do this, you're gonna get these kind of results." But at the end of the day, he's gonna be his own man, and I'm just trying to prepare my son to be the man he needs to be, to where he can stand 10 toes on his own. And like I said, whatever family he constructs, that is a family that loves him, respects him, and honors him. At the end of the day,
I like that. Yeah, right now I enjoy that. My son, all he really focuses on is Daniel Tiger, Gracie's Corner, and Bluey. That's
hey,
all he
that's
knows.
simple. That's
Hey,
simple. My son asking me for $200 basketball shoes.
oh no, man! It's about time you go get a job.
Man, I'm telling you, I'm trying to keep him busy now, Dre. I'm trying to put a little money in his pocket now.
Life comes at him fast, man.
He
That's how
already
it
talking
goes.
about he's ready for his permit, and I'm like, you need to slow up. You
Man,
trying to get a permit and everything? You got facial hair. I don't. It's too much. It's too much. But I'm glad to be here. I'm glad to be in this. It's amazing because when you see your child, you start to see certain tendencies that are you like. You know what? That's your mom. And then you
Mhm.
see some stuff. You're like, man, that boy, he gets it honest. And so there's been times where I've actually had to go back and apologize to my mom because I'm just like, yeah, I didn't know, but now I know I'm in it, and I just want to apologize for any hell I gave you during this moment in time.
I'm just, fingers crossed that my son is just a wholesome, nice, gentle human being, and there is just nothing, even in the remote atmosphere of any shenanigans that I did when I was younger. And anyone that's watching this episode that knows me, that knows Tyler, y'all know I was always on some shenanigans. I was always scheming.
Well, when you're done painting that fairy tale for yourself, and you come to reality that you might have to get down with them one or two times, you'll be okay. You'll
You're
be
right.
okay. It's gonna hurt. It's gonna hurt, and it's not gonna
Oh,
hurt. It's not gonna hurt you physically. It's just gonna hurt mentally because you're gonna be like, man, I didn't think I was gonna have to do you like this, but the time has come. Time is coming. You're gonna have to get down with them and educate them.
oh man, that you right. You right. You right. Oh man. Hey y'all, I thank y'all for tuning in to this one.
We gotta do another one.
Oh, easily.
We
If
gotta do a
you can make
part
it, if you
two.
can make it to Saturday's one, pull up to Saturdays for sure if you can.
Okay.
We're doing one Saturday, like afternoonish, probably.
What's the topic?
Same thing. It's just more people,
Okay.
but we're just having similar roundtable discussions. It's dope. Tyler, anything you want to leave with the people out there that are watching? Like any like parting words of wisdom or anything like that?
Any words of wisdom? Not much. Keep God first, and then think about how you feel. It's. I say this jokingly, but it's your world. Literally, everybody else is just living in it. So you decide how this stuff goes. You dictate how it goes. Keep God first, so He can navigate you through it. But you don't have to play by anybody else's rules but yours.
Hey, I like that. Hey, I like that. I can roll with that one. Hey, I'm gonna turn this song up. It's just instrumental because I don't want to get yanked by Spotify for any copyright.
You can't
I
do that.
want you to know, if you are listening to this podcast, you are outstanding. Just like the song.
There we go.
You are outstanding. Always remember that. You are outstanding. When you wake up in the morning, it is outstanding because you saw another day. When you leave your house, remember that it's outstanding because you have a roof over your head. When you get to work, whether you bike, walk, take a car, take an Uber, drive, you found a way to get to a job that you are grateful to have. It is outstanding.
And made it safely.
Yes, there's always silver linings in the darkest of clouds. There is always, as my great grandma used to say, God rest her soul, joy comes in the morning. Whether you are sad, there will be another day. Tomorrow is a new day. Just because it's bad now, one bad day does not equal a bad life. And I will always tell y'all this: a single chapter can make a story change. Just keep pushing.
Fair enough.
Just keep pushing. I'm Dre. This is the Aim High podcast. Make sure you support the other podcasts that are on the network. So that is the Sucio Boys podcast, Sucio Sports, A Different Angle, this is Aim High, Drelax podcast, Four Corners of Commentary, Shogun Soccer Sit Down, and the CDB podcast. We up out of here.
We got to get off the sports